Okay, so I've been trying to get familiar with Gavin Michaels' first place team from OCIC, and in the middle of one of the battles, and keep in mind I'm not high up on the ladder. I'm not that great of a player, and I don't really care for like rankings or anything. Mostly when I play, I'm playing to either test things out or get a better feel for other teams that other people have made. So this is in the middle of this particular battle. I said, okay, what's driving my decisions with this team? So I decided to do like a quick little self-review video, and it's starting with the matchup itself, because one of the caveats of this team, I don't believe that it's like a pick up and play team. It's more of a understanding your matchups and putting heavy pressure on the strongest pieces of the enemy team, while mitigating damage of your own. That's the way that I'm viewing it, at least. So just starting with this matchup, Iron Bundle, Among Us, Hydreigon, Arcanine, Grafai, and Slitherwing. Now, off the bat, overall, this isn't like a really strong team, but it's still something that you have to respect some of the pieces for. Two of those pieces are not Grafai and Slitherwing, particularly with the sets that they brought along here. You have the Grafai with Parting Shot, Encore, Poison Jab, Knockoff, and Covert Cloak. So, like, obviously, Fake Out won't work on it, but we're not particularly concerned about it. It has Parting Shot, which is something you're putting -1 attack onto most of my Pokemon here. But we're already expecting that from the Arcanine, and if and that's two utility Pokemon that you'd be forced to use at the same time. That means a lot of the onus for like your damage is dwindled down to two Pokemon. That's gonna be one of Iron Bundle, Hydreigon, or Slitherwing. Now, with the sets that they brought, we're still less concerned about that, because we can look at the Slitherwing here. This one is first impression, close combat, heavy slam with a clear amulet. Obviously, this one doesn't want to come along because the close combat is the only thing that's actually effective um, into at least part of my team. And that's just the Baxcalibur. And this one is running Terra Poison, which means the close combat will be ineffective if I ever decide to Terra Poison. And they don't really have anything that punishes me for going with that Terra. So we're not worried about that. We're not worried about Grafai. That just leaves these four Pokemon that we're expecting to come along. Iron Bundle's gonna be the typical lead there, and this one's running the booster energy, boosting its speed. So a very typical Protect plus 3 move set. And we're kind of expecting, potentially Arcanine, so I can go ahead, get the -1 down, and if I'm leading like Iron Hands, it can go ahead and start to try and burn. What they end up doing though, or let me actually go into what I decided here. Um, they don't have any resistance to Dragon whatsoever. Like the only resistance is if they Terra Steel their AV Hydreigon, right? Snarl, Draco Meteor, Dark Pulse, and Flash Cannon, right? So I can freely launch Glaive Rushes into any part of the team without much worry. So I'm automatically going to lead that. Um, then I'm going to follow up with the Iron Hands. So just by virtue of both of their stats being Ice and Electric respectively, both of those in combination are just really strong coverage overall. But it's also going to help me to cover what you'll see here. They lead with Iron Bundle and Among Us. And what I can do, because these are so beefy, the Iron Bundle's not threatening any type of KO, one-hit KO or two-hit KO on either of these Pokemon, right? So then my primary focus is on Among Us. Now, they could protect the Among Us, effectively wasting my first turn, but it's fine. Again, we're not in like any kind of 2-hit KO lethal range. Plus, the Iron Bundle being in front of these two Pokemon is pretty well exposed. So it's a little bit unsafe for them just to immediately go for like an attack. They probably want to use that to use Protect and waste one of my turns. Either way, I'm fine with double targeting into the Amoonguss with Icicle Crash and Wild Charge. Icicle Crash, of course, if they stay in and they stay, and they don't Terra the Amoonguss, they get knocked out. If they decide to stay in and Terra into water, the double up from Icicle Crash and Wild Charge will still knock it out. Meaning that their only real recourse for defending against this is switching out. And again, we're expecting Arcanine to make a play here, which is their course of action here. So they get the -1 onto both my Pokemon. They end up protecting with the bundle, so very passive turn, which is beneficial for me. So even though my attack is reduced, the Arcanine gets punished, takes a ton of damage for its efforts, and both my Pokemon are still perfectly healthy. Now, here's where we like take full control of the game. We're already in the driver's seat. Here's where we kind of lock it in. The Arcanine is a very typical set. It is Safety Goggles, Terra Grass, Flare Blitz, Extreme Speed, and Will-O-Wisp. All right, so I have Pelipper in the back, which means it's never afraid of Snarl. So that's kind of a benefit there. The Flare Blitz is not threatening any KO. Like even with a double up from Flare Blitz and let's say Hydro Pump into the Iron Hands, it never threatens a KO here. Meaning its best course of action is further reducing my power through Will-O-Wisp. It can't burn the Batcalibur, so its only target is the Iron Hands. Iron Bundle is exposed now because if it goes for a double protect, that's risky for no real payoff, which means I can just freely launch a Glaive Rush into that slot. With the -1, I'm even with a Dragon Fang, I'm not expecting it to kill, so it's gonna need a double up from the Iron Hands. But Iron Hands, I also want to reposition to reset the attack drop and get my Fake Out back. It can be for use later on. So we decide we're gonna double up into that slot. And the double up is needed. The Glaive Rush is not enough to kill. Iron Hands gets burned, and the Volt Switch, being on the special side of things, is very likely what helps us to collect that kill. Because if Iron Bundle wasn't so specially defensive, if its special defense wasn't so low, it would probably have survived that, and I have to waste another turn trying to deal with it. But unfortunately, that double up is enough to KO with it. And now the Arcanine's in even worse slot. It's pretty much ineffective here because now it can't burn the Dragonite, at least not immediately, because it's running Lumberry. Now they lead into Amoonguss here, and what we decide. So the Amoonguss is pretty much forced to Terra. If not, it's going to get freely knocked out by either Icicle Crash or Terra Flying. We can be pretty confident in that. So just in case though, we're going to go ahead and cover it by using Terra Blast into that slot. Into the Arcanine, however, we want to use Glaive Rush into that slot to cover for the Hydreigon switch. Honestly, I was expecting Rage Powder into the switch and then perhaps cycle back Arcanine to get the -1 on a later turn. But either way, what happens here actually works well in my favor. The Hydreigon gets caught by the Glaive Rush as I launch it into it. The Dragonite going to use Terra Blast Flying into Amoonguss. Again, if they did not Terra, they get KO'd. They are also kind of forced to go for a Spore here. Like Rage Powder switching to Hydreigon is fine, but Glaive Rush plus Terra Blast would KO even with Terra Water anyway. So they need to go for a Spore into the Batcalibur to kind of mitigate the damage and hope that the Hydreigon get in safely, because they need these attack drops from the Intimidate from Arcanine to cycle through. So it's almost a safe bet to just launch a Glaive Rush into the Arcanine. Even if they did something like Protect the Arcanine and then Spore the Batcalibur, the Amoonguss is still we still get to deal with the Amoonguss later with the Iron Hands. We can cycle back in. It's burned, but a quick double up into Amoonguss is perfectly fine. The Dragonite still has multi-scale intact, so even if Hydreigon comes in, it's not going to immediately KO the Dragonite. There are tons of ways that I can like lean into the back end of the game, but the decisions I make, or the ones I made in this game, were to take the lead just by my leading two Pokemon. And once I got the position where like I'm there's a huge health gap from those initial two attacks. We try and lock it in with like general coverage and understanding how the opposing Pokemon match up into my own. So yeah, that's a little bit of so. I think there are a number of things that I could have done a little bit differently. Like right here, I don't need to necessarily Terra Blast into the Amoonguss. I can actually just go ahead and switch back out into the Iron Hands, protect my protect my my Bat excuse me. Um, that way, like I'm not threatened with a spore. I'm still in position with my Iron Hands because there's no way that the spore the Dragonite slot while they know it has Lumberry. Now, no matter whether or not they switch, I still have Fake Out active to kind of play with. I can even switch out to cycle out the attack drops from Excalibur, use Pelipper to my advantage at that point. So I do like what switch in Iron Hands, fake out the Amoonguss, bring in the Pelipper. That's relatively safe. I can even get the Tailwind up to make sure that I'm always moving ahead of the Hydreigon at any point. So I think there were a number of safer ways to kind of play out that in game, but as far as like keeping the pressure on to make sure that I don't lose my position, this was just like a self reflection on how I do my targeting. Yeah, that's all.